Hi everyone, this is Dalia from Nightmare on 5th Street, and I wanted to give an introduction to this episode because I feel that some of my remarks may come off as flippant when discussing the author of this novel on which the movie is based. It was not my intent, however, that is exactly how I sound. Alma and I had been talking for quite a while before that we actually started recording, so I feel like maybe I was thinking that conversation had been brought over into our recording, but it was not, and that is 100% my fault. Specifically, I'm talking about the fact that Oscar Wilde was a predator. A trigger warning here, and for the beginning of this episode, for sexual assault of minors. Oscar Wilde raped young underage boys. Whether it was thought of as consensual, statutory rape, whatever, that's a fact. During this episode, when I am discussing Oscar Wilde's trial, the charges, and criticism against his homosexual lifestyle, I was trying to discuss the very weird and strange fact that people at that time seemed to be more offended by his being gay than by the fact that these were young boys that he was quote unquote having relationships with. So again, I apologize that my comments seem insensitive, that they are insensitive. That was not my intent. I feel like during our recording, I glossed over the fact that I do believe Oscar Wilde was in fact a predator of young boys. Having said that, if you feel that this episode is not for you, I completely understand. Our conversation of the movie after speaking about Oscar Wilde, I do feel is more centered on the Picture of Dorian Gray and the actors themselves. However, separating the work from the creator is not something that I would ever ask anyone to do. So I completely understand if this episode is not for you. All right. Thank you. And if you are joining us for the rest of this episode, on to the Picture of Dorian Gray. Hello, my name is Dalia.
And I'm Alma. This is Nightmare on 5th Street, a horror movie podcast.
Did you hear of the nightmare on 5th Street?
All right, so Alma, what movie are we watching, or did we watch and discussing today?
We watched The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I rented it. I had to rent it.
Okay.
Like, I thought I had like this whole flashback, and I ended up watching Clerks again because I had that feeling, that nostalgic moment when you have to rent a movie, even though we still rent movies. But for some reason, renting this movie made me feel like the video store. Like I got the video store vibes. And then I watched Clerks, and it just, I just was like remembering just walking down and looking for the movie you want to see and how they would put the movies in different sections. And this is an older movie. So I had that whole feeling. This one's from 1948, right?
45.
Yeah, 45? Oh, okay.
Yeah, 45. And there are several versions of this movie because it is based on the book.
We did the OG because
we did
there's like the 70s version, the 80s version.
And then, of course, many, many references to Dorian Gray in pop culture. But yeah, I found it on Prime Video. Same place for you, Alma? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So the short summary for IMDb is really fucking short. This is what it says. A corrupt young man somehow keeps his youthful beauty, but a special painting gradually reveals his inner ugliness to all. Now, This movie, if you're watching it, you may not automatically think horror, but you got to think about of the time. So the book was written like 1890 or something like that, and then the movie is 1945. So yeah, this is very early when people are getting offended very easily, scared very easily, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
We were offended about everything all the time anyway.
But so
the film though is set in 1886.
Okay. And it's a gothic horror, fantasy horror drama. Those are all categories that it's considered. But yeah, so this, obviously, that we said, it is based on the Oscar Wilde 1890 novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. And before we get into, and that was me clapping. I don't know why I clapped, but now I don't know why I keep doing it either.
I know. I'm like, why did I hear it again?
Because I was doing it. Before we get into talking about the book and the movie, I just want to remind everybody that we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/nightmare movie podcast. And if you feel ever so inclined to support us, head on over to that page. We have several tiers for you to choose from, but just know that you don't have to do that. And however you choose to support us, we greatly appreciate it. All right. Okay. So I just want to start off real quick by saying, usually after we discuss the movie, I like to do a real world connection where we pick something out of the movie and then we discuss it afterwards. I'm doing something a little bit different this time though. And if you've already listened to the Old Dark House, I kind of did it there, except I did in reverse order. I decided to talk about the author a little bit because like with these older movies and then they're based on novels, I just thought it was really interesting because in everybody's lives are interesting. But in particular, these two novels that we've discussed for our first two movies of season 3, the authors have led very interesting lives, or drama filled, however you want to talk about it. So instead of doing the real world connection after the movie, I decided since we're going to be talking about a novel, we just, it would be kind of cool to talk about the authors themselves. And also because season 3 is queer horror. And so I don't know, maybe it might not be very obvious to people why this is considered queer horror. You may not know anything about the author or just watching the movie at a glance. It may not seem very, obvious. So I just want to discuss why this is considered queer horror, a little bit about the novel and Oscar Wilde himself. So I like his name. Oscar Wilde is the author of The Picture of I was going to say Dorian Gray. I don't know what the fuck that is. But his full name, Oscar, I'm going to fuck up the pronunciation of this. Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wills Wilde.
It looks just like it sounds. It's pronounced just like it looks. Fingal O'Flaherty.
Okay, all right. He was October 18. He lived from October 1854 through November 1900. He was a writer, poet, playwright, and The Picture of Dorian Gray was originally written for the Lippincott Monthly magazine, and it was just a story versus a novel. Okay, so at the time when this story originally came out in the magazine, reviews started coming out calling it immoral because it referred to quote unquote homosexual subtext, overtext, etc. And in the coming, I think it was months and maybe the next year, Wilde then added more chapters, more to the story to make it a complete novel. And I think it was a total of 6 chapters that he added. And he kind of toned down the obvious and decadent, the quote unquote homosexual decadence. So in the novel,
to me is such a nice word to describe it.
So it was toned down a little bit for the actual novel that came out, but people obviously were still, this book was banned like in a lot of places.
This is the thing. When you tell people that something is bad and they shouldn't read it, that makes me go look for it and go read it. Can I read something here? The way that it was described at the time. It says, The Picture of Dorian Gray offended the moral sensibilities of British book reviewers to the extent, in some cases, of saying that Wilde merited prosecution for violating the laws guarding public morality. And I'm reading that with my tea and my crumpets, and I'm going to go hitherto to the nearest library.
Clutching your pearls the whole way.
That's going to make me want to read it.
Oh, exactly. And I actually have a quote from Wilde a little bit later about that. But you're right. When someone says, don't watch it, you're going to want to watch it. It still works today. You tell kids, don't watch this, they're going to fucking find a way to watch it. So, I think you mentioned right now. So in 1895, charges were brought against Wilde for gross indecency and sodomy, for quote unquote immorality and homosexual acts. I don't know why I say homosexual like that. I think that's how they say it when they're these homosexual acts.
you have to put a quote. People aren't seeing like that we're doing the quotation marks.
Yeah.
We're quoting people because those are the words they use in an offensive manner.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing. They're trying to offend you by using these words in describing this. And I don't know, like just the person who wrote it is the one who's offended, because the rest of us, I think, even look at it, people read it anyway.
Yeah.
They reviewed it.
Exactly.
Bought it because you made it sound good.
Okay, so like I said, in 1895, charges were brought against him, and he did end up serving 2 years in prison. So the charges that were brought up against him at the time were specifically for the quote unquote homosexual acts that he was engaging in. So he was, though, having relations with young boys. I found a lot of interesting things that I was reading about it. So like, in defense of, I'll get into that later. I found this really interesting old book from like 1910 or something like that. It was like all these writings in defense of Dorian Gray, specifically about the book. But I just found it interesting that the charges that were brought up against him were for the sodomy, for the relations with other men. But it seemed like all the witnesses they were bringing up that were saying that they had sex with him were of boys younger than 18. But they weren't talking about the fact that these were young boys. You know, they weren't bringing up, oh, look, he had sex with this 16-year-old boy. No, it was, hey, look at this quote unquote prostitute, male prostitute he had sex with. Not, look at this child that he had sex with. So I found that really interesting. And the more I thought about it, I guess it kind of makes sense, because at that time, it wasn't really frowned upon for men to have relations with young women. Like Edgar Allan Poe, like we were talking about, even married his 14-year-old cousin. I mean, so many different people married, young cousins or very young brides. Talk at the time was not about the young boys that he was engaging in relations, statutory rape at that time is what I'm saying. However, today, when people are critics of him as a person, they are bringing up the point that it's the young boys that he was having these relations with. So, like I said, he was in prison for 2 years. While he was in prison, it was one of those, I already forgot what they're called, the hard labor type of prisons. And he was, I saw it quoted several times of his delicate, what's the word? I can't remember. He was not used to hard labor. Let's just put it that way. After his release from prison, it was kind of a mix of a mix of spiritual revival, because obviously in prison his health and his spirit were on a decline. But when he came out of prison, he was starting to feel better and just feel spiritually renewed. But then it was kind of like an up and down declination of spirit health and his reputation. And then just in general, because of his status in a society. And he eventually died in 1900 of meningitis. So a very interesting drama-filled life. So let's get into the actual novel itself. Alma, can you tell us a little bit about the novel? What does Goodreads.com say?
Goodreads.com, it says, written in his distinctively dazzling manner, Oscar Wilde's story of a fashionable young man who sells his soul for eternal youth and beauty is the author's most popular work. The tale of Dorian Gray's moral disintegration caused a scandal when it first appeared in 1890, but though Wilde was attacked for the novel's corrupting influence, he responded that there is, in fact, a terrible moral in Dorian Gray. Just a few years later, the book and the aesthetic moral dilemma it presented became issues in the trials occasioned by Wilde's homosexual liaisons, which resulted in his imprisonment. Of Dorian Gray's relationship to autobiography, Wilde noted it in a letter. Basil, Howard is what I think I am. Lord Henry, what the world thinks me. Dorian, what I would like to be. In other ages, perhaps.
Yeah, so I just found that interesting, the way he compared himself. And you can see it. I think I do see it in the movie, because I just don't think, even if you're putting on this face to the public that you're very one-noted, no one's like that. You have different parts to your personality, even if you're just presenting one side of that personality. So you can find this book everywhere, obviously. However, if you want to read it for free, you can actually go to Project Gutenberg. Project Gutenberg is where you can find all the, what is it called, in the public domain book. I found, like I had mentioned earlier, I found this very interesting. It was a collection of like letters to the editor, writings, whatever. Is A Defense of the Picture of Dorian Gray, edited by Stuart Mason. This is the whole title. It's really interesting. What the public calls an unhealthy novel is always a beautiful and healthy work of art. I was like, okay, that sounds like a title I would write. Well, in London, I guess the editors are J. Jacobs, Edgware Road, 1908. And I just want to read a couple of these because I found them very fascinating. So this is from Oscar Wilde, and, well, he's going to say what it's talking about. To the editor of the St. James Gazette, Sir, I have read your criticism of my story, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I need hardly say that I do not propose to discuss its merits and demerits, its personalities, or its lack of personality. England is a free country, and ordinary English criticism is perfectly free and easy. Besides, I must admit that either from temperament or taste, or from both, I am quite incapable of understanding how any work of art can be criticized from a moral standpoint. The sphere of art and the sphere of ethics are absolutely distinct and separate, and it is to the confusion between the two that we owe the appearance of Mrs. Grundy, that amusing old lady who represents the only original form of humor that the middle classes of this country have been able to produce. What I do object to most strongly is that you should have placarded the town with placarded? I don't know. Anyways, the town with posters on which was printed in large letters, Mr. Oscar Wilde's latest advertisement, a bad case. Whether the expression a bad case refers to my book or to the present position of the government, I cannot tell. I think that's funny. What was silly and unnecessary was the use of the term advertisement. I think I may say without vanity, though I do not wish to appear to run vanity down, that of all men in England, I am the one who requires least advertisement. He thought very highly of himself, obviously. I am tired to death of being advertised. I feel no thrill when I see my name in a paper. The Chronicle does not interest me anymore. I wrote this book entirely for my own pleasure, and it gave me great pleasure to write it. Whether it becomes popular or not is a matter of absolute indifference to me. I am afraid, sir, that the real advertisement is your cleverly written article. The English public, as a mass, takes no interest in a work of art until it is told that the work in question is immoral, and your réclame will, I have no doubt, largely increase the sale of the magazine, in which sale, I may mention with some regret, I have no pecuniary interest. I don't know what that pecuniary, is that the right way to say it? I remain, sir, your obedient servant, Oscar Wilde, 16 Tite Street, Chelsea, June 25th. So I thought that was funny because you had mentioned that, and I had planned to share this writing from there, but basically he says the same thing as you. Once you say something is bad, immoral, whatever, people are going to eat that shit up. And did people eat this shit up? Of course they did. Whether you knew you were going to be offended, you read it. Whether you thought you were going to like it, you read it. And he was fucking right.
Just like this podcast, tell your friends we're highly offensive and we're rude and we've got what is it? How do they say it? Sailor mouths or mouths of a sailor, whatever.
Sailor.
Okay,
cuss like a sailor.
yeah. So I didn't think I said the word fuck a lot, and probably because I compare myself to Dalia, and she says it like 100 more times with me. No offense, but like,
I'm offended.
Everyone should listen to this podcast now. It's totally taboo. But anyway, because I had a few videos that I had made, and then I realized I didn't notice that I had said, I had said any bad words. I put in quotation marks. And when I edit it, you can see how it pops up, on your captions or whatever. So I didn't upload a video because I realized I did it 3 videos in a row after saying, I'm sorry for saying the F word in there, because I did that 2 videos in a row. And then the third one, I was like, holy shit. It's just like a perfect adjective adverb. So anyway, what I'm telling you.
Adjective, adverb, punctuation, everything.
It's the best word. It just is. Why can't we just accept that? So
okay.
Our podcast is scandalous.
That's what we should make up our own little, like, what do they call it?
We'll have somebody clutching their pearls.
Oh, there we go. That's a great poster. We'll commission that artwork immediately. All right, Alma, can you tell us who wrote the screenplay, who directed it, who's in this movie, all that lovely stuff?
All right. This movie was written for the screen by Albert Lewin, who also directed the film. And our key players, I love saying that. I'm going to just do it all the time. George Sanders is playing Lord Henry Wotton. Herd Hatfield is Dorian Gray. Cedric Hardwicke is our narrator. And I did mention this a couple of times because I absolutely like narration. Sometimes.
That sounds
British
weird.
Pronunciation. I'm using the British pronunciation.
Okay, all right.
Like advertisement. This is the narration. And Lowell Gilmore plays Basil Howard. Angela Lansbury as Sybil Vane, and her mother plays her real life mother plays her mother in this movie, and her name Moyna McGill is her mother and plays her mother. Richard Fraser as James Vane, Donna Reed as Gladys Howard, Lillian Bond, and she was also in the movie we just watched, The Old Dark House, as Kate, Peter Lawford, and Douglas Walton.
Now, when I saw Angela Lansbury as a young woman, I just started having memories of watching A Murder, She Wrote. And the whole time she was on there, it's like, oh my God, all I see is Murder, She Wrote. But not really, because I love her acting in this. And we'll obviously get more into it, but I think she played the role so well. I cried.
It looks absolutely like sweet, angelic, if you could use that word. I know I'm like pulling the angelic. Yeah, that's what I'm using. Because she looks just like so sweet and so like petite and just really beautiful. And the way they did the light all the time on women back then. So they just like
the lighting.
Glow.
Yeah, the glow on her face, and just like she's so radiant on screen, and her voice and everything. So I loved seeing Angela Lansbury, because I don't think I've seen much early work of hers. So seeing her in this role in this movie, I really enjoyed it. But
she does sing her own song in this one. Yeah. Her voice is her voice. Mm-hmm. But I had read that in a couple other movies they had people like sing for her, so she just like did the lip syncing. And but in Murder, She Wrote, the same song she sings in this movie, The Little Yellow Bird, or I'm not sure what the name of it is, she sings it in an episode of Murder, She Wrote as well.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. Did you pull it up to hear it?
No, I didn't hear the comparison. I should have. That would have been nice to like listen to. Like,
I'll have to do that. First thoughts. I like to always do this. Alma, first thoughts about this movie. Stop doing that.
Nobody can see me. I don't know why she insists on telling everybody that I'm doing goofy shit when nobody can see me. Anyway, first thoughts. I loved this movie. I honestly thought it was going to be shorter. That's why I mentioned the narrator, that I enjoyed the narration because it kept the pacing of the movie and kept me interested in the movie. Yeah. I thought it was a great adaptation of a book. into the movie. I thought the acting was wonderful. It was beautiful at points. It is in black and white. It's set in 1886, but I thought I would note that there are 4 times in which color is used, and that is to show the painting of Dorian Gray. Although it was criticized, and I'm like, I think people were just criticizing the movie because they didn't like the author of the book. Sometimes, so they're picking on things. They're like, well, if they were going to show the portrait in color, then why wasn't it always in color every time they showed it? And I'm like, I like the key points that they showed it in color.
It was shocking because you don't expect it to come on in color. And so it adds a jarring effect when you see the portrait.
And when he's just talking and it's in the background, it's not a key point. So therefore, why does it need to be in color? It's going to be distracting you. So in your face, critics. So yeah.
That's what I dead faces. Your long, dead, shrivelly bones. Sorry.
That's mean.
We're all going to be bones someday.
But it's okay. That's true. That's true.
Okay. So, I liked it too. I was very surprised though. It left certain movies do this to me. It left a feeling of it was very, I hate using the word haunting because it sounds so cliche, but it was very haunting for me. It left a feeling of dread for me that I actually had a nightmare last night. And it's kind of funny because it's not like because this isn't a horror movie in the today sense, that we know it. But just the elements of it are things that kind of in general cause dread in me and cause me sometimes even to have panic attacks, like
anxiety.
But no, I mean, I have real panic attacks around death. So having those elements they were in this movie. And then they creeped into my dreams. I had a nightmare. So thankfully, I didn't have a panic attack because that's what usually happens. But it caused enough of that dread that I'm like, okay, I can totally see how this is a horror movie for me at least. But I liked it. Just because it caused those feelings doesn't mean I didn't like it. I really, really liked it. Yes, it was long. It was almost 2 hours long, but it didn't feel like it. I really didn't feel like it was it was that long. And I personally liked when it turned in they used the color, whatever they call it, for those scenes, because for me, like I said, it was jarring because I was like, wait a minute, is it in color now? And then it disappears. I'm like, did I just imagine that? And then no, it's happened. So I like that it made me think, during the movie, just those moments there. So I liked it.
Okay, so we have the beginning of the movie. I'm going to go ahead and start with something that I wrote because I took the time to write it because it's my favorite quote in the movie, and it's opening with the quote, Lord Henry Wotton had set himself early in life to the serious study of the great aristocratic art of doing absolutely nothing. And I want that on a shirt as my life motto. And
oh my God, I fucking love that.
The interpretations of the critics talking about these characters, I'm like, what's wrong with that? I want to lead a life of leisure. Who doesn't want to do whatever the fuck they want? And another quote from him was, if I could get back my youth, I'd do anything in the world except get up early, take exercise, or be respectable.
Oh my God, I wrote that quote down too. Oh, you did? Loved it. I fucking loved it.
Wasn't it? Okay, like obviously me and you wouldn't have got along back in the days of this time because we're brown women. But these dudes were living like the dream life. Okay. Oh my God. I'm like, what are they doing? What are they
I don't think I ever saw them doing shit.
And I'm like, the hardest work these people had was they changed for breakfast and they changed into dinner clothes and they wrote letters. If I could write a letter and not be disturbed, I'd pretend like I was writing a letter all day. I'm not joking you. One of my favorite things to do to mother was to act busy so that she didn't bother me. Like if you're standing on your feet, I learned to like act busy or take.
Would you just move back and forth in the room, like pretend you're shuffling things?
Yes. I I want to rest. When do we get the rest? Okay, so these dudes, okay. So this is where we're set here. London, 1886. Dorian Gray is a handsome and wealthy young man. And while generally intelligent, he is naive and easily manipulated. These faults lead to his spiral into sin and ultimate misery. We see Lord Henry Wotton is reading, and he is visiting his friend Basil Hallward, the painter, who is painting a picture of Dorian Gray, and he doesn't want him to meet Dorian Gray.
And right away, I started kind of picking up on a lot of these things. Like, okay, so he obviously likes him a lot, Dorian Gray. Little factoid, in the movie, he has dark hair and dark eyes. And in the book, he is blonde and is it blue eyes or green eyes? But definitely not dark eyes. They just thought, I guess, was it the contrast in the movie would show better, like, and when you watch the movie, it's true. This actor did so well. What's his name again? Hurd? Yeah, Hurd Hatfield was such a good actor because his face always fucking looked the same. He didn't emote big, but yet he did. I mean, his face didn't move a lot, but you can still see what he was trying to emote. And I love that because his mouth barely moved and his eyes did all the talking and everything. It's like when the narrator would narrate, when he's saying what's going on, in his mind or in the moment, you'd see Dorian Gray just standing there not saying anything, but you could see in his eyes, just like everything the narrator's saying.
The presence in the movie, the presence. I mean, he's the one you notice when you walk into a room, when he walks into a room. I had made a silly note about how, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is why entitlement still exists, because people would stop doing everything they were doing when these rich men walked into the room. But the thing was, like, his presence was absolutely he was just a masterpiece, like walking through each scene, him still. And of course, he's going to be, well, we'll learn, staying the same. Well, I give one trigger warning before we discuss the movie, because although it is old and things mostly are implied, they do speak about suicide in the movie several times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he is going to meet the Dorian Gray, and we said his character is described as easily manipulated, and I'm not going to give him that benefit. I'm like, naive. I can understand naive, but if you're easily manipulated, I just don't, just too much. They don't give him, like, speaking about him, they're kind of blaming a lot of the blame on the other character, Lord Henry Wotton. I'm like, sometimes we just have to take credit for our own shit. Own your shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So
although Lord Henry was a piece of or Harry, whatever his name was,
he's a piece of shit. Yeah. He's a fucking dirtbag. Okay. So we'll get into that. Okay. So he's come to meet Basil the painter, and he's painting his portrait. And the cynical but witty Wotton persuades Gray the only worthwhile life is dedicated to pleasure, because what the gods give, they quickly take away. After Wotton convinces Gray that youth and beauty will bring him everything he desires, Dorian wishes his portrait could age instead of him. He makes the wish in the presence of an Egyptian cat statue with supposed mystical powers.
Oh, okay. Of course. It's always all stuff. Sorry, I was just going to say always these mystical powers with these foreign exotic things.
Yes. I'm like saying those tropes. Those can stay in the past. But in this case, he had this and it was random too, because they wanted to show that he had a lot of things that he admired beauty and art wise. And he has this beautiful room, portraits, things from all over the world. But Basil is there and he's just trying to paint a painting. And I realized he really doesn't want Lord Wotton in there. Dorian Gray, that's how quickly he's standing there saying, I wish I never aged. All because he talked to this dude for a minute. This is the guy, and he still exists, everyone. You'll see videos of him. Hopefully you don't know anybody like this. And if you do, it's probably a family member which you can't get rid of, who speaks their mind. And every time they make a joke, everybody is like, he's just joking. He's instigating.
Yeah.
He's instigating. He's a jerk.
He's a jerk.
He's rude. He makes jokes at everybody's expense that are not jokes, and everybody just kind of laughs it off. Oh, that's him. Oh, but Basil is smart enough to know he didn't want him around Dorian because Dorian is sweet. Dorian is sweet and naive and young.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this says a lot about him too, is that Basil saw something in Dorian Gray that knew that he shouldn't be friends with Lord Wotton.
Yep. And it's I find it interesting that Oscar Wilde says all three are him. So if he is considering Dorian Gray as being quote unquote easily manipulated, then Lord Henry was a part of him that was egging, that part that didn't want to show itself, I guess is the best way. It's probably that little devil sitting on your shoulder that isn't always the one out there.
Yeah, but I think this is a great picture of what people thought peer pressure was like. And I actually thought if people didn't like it and they found it to be immoral, this is actually a serious thought that I had, was that these movies were actually a good thing that they should have actively wanted people to see, because then they can have proof of, if you act like this is the consequences of your actions. See, you don't listen to peer pressure because then you'll do this. So I'm like, why were they trying not to get people to be interested in something that was the exact thing of what they're preaching all the time? You know, I'm like, this is exactly what you're saying will happen. Show it to your kids.
Yeah, and that's actually some of the things that were said in defense of the book, of the novel. Exactly. And then when the movie came out, of course, there's a moral in this, kind of like Aesop's fables and all that shit. You know, there's a moral to it.
There's a huge moral in there. Okay, so Dorian visits a tavern where he falls in love with the beautiful singer Sybil Vane. That's Angela Lansbury. They begin a romance despite disapproval from Sybil's brother, James, and they're soon engaged. Though initially contented, Dorian is again persuaded by Lord Henry to pursue a more hedonistic lifestyle. And, so this love, the romance is actually portrayed really good on screen, because back then you courted very quickly and it was all always very innocent. Well, at least portrayed on screen, because it's not like people weren't having sex. But with the man, he wasn't going to be having sex with the woman he was courting until they got married, because they did stuff on their own.
Yeah, he was fucking the side piece.
Yeah, the side women's, the side whatevers, the side pieces. There you go. And so, so he meets her. There's this whole scene. He can tell he finds her enchanting. In the book, she is a sophisticated Shakespearean actress, but for the movie purposes, they made her a vaudevillian. Vaudevillian, is that how you describe it?
A vaudeville performer,
singer,
yeah.
Performer. And she sings this song and he is just taken aback immediately. And you can tell the reason he's attracted to her is because this woman is so sweet and innocent, just the way that he was. You know, of course he's going to be attracted to her.
Yeah.
He meets the mom right away, is in the room. And I like when they meet because the mom's in the room and they kiss. And the mom's right there.
And the brother too. And the brother wants to storm over there. And the mom's like.
Those relationships of the protective older brother were always like, so is this the friend who wants to be the boyfriend, or is it a family relative person? Because that's how you never knew. But he is the brother. He's a sailor. He's going to be leaving for Australia. And he wants to make sure that his little baby, sweet angel-faced sister is taken care of while he's gone, and doesn't think that Dorian is good. It's interesting the way he just was attracted to go here in the first place.
It's not. It was very random. Yeah.
Yeah. It's because you can see he's obviously attracted to dark places as well. He was already, I think, predisposed to that.
And then finding this angelic, beautiful voice, wonderful woman in this, like you said, this dark place. And then the fucking song was, first of all, I think you had mentioned, I don't know if it was off before we started recording, but several different singers were singing this part. But regardless, the voice is beautiful that we're hearing.
Well, it's her voice, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was saying Angela Lansbury does sing for this, but in other roles, when she does have to sing in other movies, they do substitute a singer. But I thought she had a great voice.
I loved it.
Back then voice.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. But the lyrics to this song too, though, are very they're perfect for the movie. Talking about the bird that doesn't want to be caged up, even though it's, caged up with being given jewels and gold and all that this little yellow bird would rather be free. So I just found that really interesting, that the song that was chosen, that she's singing, and that he has her sing so many times throughout the beginning of this movie. He'll like ask her to sing it just for him, like, when no one's around. I found that like, and she did it. She kept singing that song for him because he loved it.
It was creepy to me. But back then you could pay. That's why I think that he was there, because even if he was going to find somebody to entertain him regardless, but in this case, he was going to pay her extra if she would sing with just a private audience of himself. But the mom, of course, was there. So that's her protection. The mom was there. But they did kiss. They did kiss on the first time. Oh. All right. So when he tells the news, it's great news. He's engaged to her. He has not officially asked her to marry him, but he had decided from the first meeting and speaking with her that he was going to marry her. But Lord Henry here, freaking trifling, just drama dude over here, starts to inject his little opinions into him. Like, are you sure? You're only young once and your youth is going to go away. And perhaps you should test her loyalty, her love to you. And this is all insinuated that he's going to test her love for him. So when she comes to visit, Sybil comes over to his home. It's time to go home. And what does a woman of that time do to maintain her purity? I put it in quotation marks. She's heading home. But he starts to make her feel bad about heading home and kind of gives her the guilty feeling like, you're going to leave me, please stay. And she's like, no, because a woman of my, character wouldn't stay over the night. That's what he's asking. But eventually she does just stay overnight because they do it. And then he determines that her worth is nothing. She has broken his love for her by failing this test.
Which I am so fucking pissed off about, because it was this fucking Lord Henry, little piece of shit over here, whispering bullshit into Dorian Gray's ear. Of course, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own actions. But I fucking hate Lord Henry. He's over here. First of all, he's talking grossly about women, of the poor. These are things that he's saying, of quote unquote slaves of the East End, because the East End, I believe, is where the vaudeville place is. So he's just talking really gross about it all. And there was this dinner that they were having. I don't know if this is now or later, but even at the dinner, he's not just doing this in front of the guys. He's doing this. He does it in mixed company. Talks really ugly about everybody.
But it's just a joke. You guys are being sensitive. The dude who is getting infuriated.
Oh, I wrote that down. Yeah.
Even him, he's told to hush. He's just
Exactly. He was a politician, because Lord Henry says, "Oh, I apologize for my intelligent remarks. I forgot you were a member of Parliament." I was like, there's always these jabs at Parliament and all this shit. I'm like, dude, you're a fucking rich guy who I don't see ever work. I mean, what good are you? But anyways,
what the fuck does he do?
Fucking Lord Henry is putting these ideas out there into the universe. Dorian Gray picks up on them, and he follows through with something that fucking Lord Henry said. And because she decided she wanted to spend the night with him, she wanted, his company. Oh, now she's no good. She's no good for him, and he fucking dumps her like a piece of shit. It's like with a text message. He fucking writes her a letter.
Yes, he writes the letter. That is the
and
text
throws the money
the
on the nightstand.
And the pièce de résistance is he includes a whole bunch of money for your troubles. That's why I mentioned he's not so much somebody who's manipulated as I think he was always intended to find a sex worker while he went down there. I think he'd always intended to go down there. You think so?
Okay.
Yes.
And he just happened to see her and she took his notice.
And he quotes, spoiled her, is what he did. Because she was trying to prove her love for him, because she did love him. And therefore, that's why she stayed the night with him. But instead, he treated her like what he thought the garbage should be treated like, which is what Lord Wotton had been trying to get them to do it. But it reminds me, and I know it's a really not even like the juxtaposition here of these two movies is not even, but in the movie with, he wrote the movie, oh my gosh, My Sweet Valentine. Was it called that? My Bloody Valentine. Remember the woman who ends up, she's having sex with the man in the movie, and then he throws money at her. She's like, I'm not a prostitute. And she gets really upset. And runs off chasing with him. I thought of that because it was like,
this was something that was not that, and you turn it into that.
Yes, and he did, because then it's like, she willingly wanted to be with you, but you ruined it by treating her like a garbage afterward. And I don't know why, but I remember the conversation we had about that movie at the time. And the empowerment of her, like, putting her shoes on and chasing after him.
Fucking chasing. But unfortunately.
No, this was a different time.
This happened differently.
So she receives that, and obviously breaks her heart. But the next morning, after doing this, he heads up and he's looking at the portrait of himself, and he realizes something very different has happened to the painting. Something has changed. He notices the lines of cruelty about the mouth were unmistakable. He starts to realize that his wish to the cat may be real, and Lord Henry arrives with news. So he's staring at the portrait of himself. He's like, what's wrong with my face? And then he has like a little moment of, oh shit, I've done a horrible thing here, and I need to do something about it. So then he rushes to go write her another letter. Okay, so hopefully she hasn't read the other text. She left him on unread. And he is typing it out. I do love you, and I want to be with you. And
just kidding.
I was just kidding. Disregard that previous text. That was my mom, that wasn't me. Haha, joke.
Oh my God.
So, but Lord Wotton comes, and he's so casual.
This fucking casual little prick.
And he delivers some really sad news that he's like, oh, well, I was going to go see her or whatever. But he says she's dead. He said it so like just plain. Oh,
very casually.
Dead. Ugh. She's dead. And it's like, what? So he said that it looks as though she had taken her life, and Dorian knows why. But he is so cold about it. And it's like, you must come to the opera with me tonight. And he's like, and this is the big difference. This is why I say I don't think he's as easily manipulated as I think he's just playing on what he actually wants to do. Because in the dinner, when they showed the politician arguing and saying, I don't like the way he's talking, I'm getting out of here. Dorian never does that. This is what a lot of us still do, our characters. When somebody is when you're confronted with shitty people saying shitty things, we just allow them to. Whether you act on those things or not, that is up to you. And he seems to, at every turn, just decide to take the stupid path,
And it's not out of fear or anything like that, because you could tell, you can see the difference if someone just doesn't feel safe to call them out, safe to leave, safe to whatever. No, he's like, he has this kind of like presence of like, ooh, tell me more. What are your thoughts? But I want to go back to when Angela Lansbury reads I don't remember her name, sorry. Sybil. When she reads the letter from Dorian Gray, I need to let everybody know, just go back, if you haven't watched this movie, or go back and watch this scene, because she does a great fucking job in this scene of showing what's going on. She's reading the letter, and just the way she's standing there, and she does this thing when she pulls the money out from the letter, and she's looking at it as she's reading the letter, and it's very subtle. But the way she looks at the money and places the letter and the money down, you know what's going to happen, but it's all very subtle. It's not, she's not her acting isn't very dramatic or anything. She does it all with just these little subtle movements. Fucking Angela Lansbury killed it with this part right here, because this is the last time we're going to see her in this scene. And I thought she did it beautifully, because you do, when you go to the next scene, you know what's happened. At least I did. I'm sure other people did. And it's depressing, because when I saw that, I'm not going to lie, I'm not too proud to admit that I started tearing up. And I'm like, motherfucker, I'm going to motherfucking kick this piece of shit's ass because of what he did to my Angela Lansbury. I was so mad. I was so mad.
So Dorian, although he is shocked and feels guilty at first for half a second, soon adopts Lord Henry's indifferent manner. In fact, that night when Basil comes to look at him, he realizes that Dorian has gone off to the opera to go have himself a good time with the Lord. And I like that Basil keeps checking up on him. Like, I think he knew that he needed to, because he had made this new friend. And he thought he was going to be heartbroken at home because he knew how much he loved her, but he isn't. He obviously has decided to go the path of, even though he's already seen the painting, he goes ahead, and Dorian, he decides he's going to lock it up. He takes it to his old playroom so he doesn't have to look at it, and he tosses a big blanket over it so he doesn't have to see. Why does he do that? Because he's decided he's going to fuck around. He's decided he's going to fuck around with the rest of his life. He hid it because he's like, instead of having this thing in my face where I'm going to have to see it all the time, no, I'm going to go hide it so nobody sees that the shittier I am, we're going to see some shit going on.
Well, not only that, but, okay, first of all, that, yes. But when he has to move it, first of all, he's not going to do it himself. He has his men do it, and then he fires his men afterwards. These are the words he's using. He fires them, and anytime he has to do any moving or anything within that room, he fires the people right afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, so then, because he's constantly firing the people right after they do this, because he doesn't want them to, whatever, he doesn't want them to talk about it, whatever, anything like that. All these rumors and people start talking about him behind his back and all these things.
Through the narration, we learned that he decides that he's going to be leading this heartless, and they like quotes, heartless and hedonistic lifestyle. He's going to do what he wants. And he is ruining people and breaking relationships. Is that how you would describe it? Like, yes, he has a friend, but he has destroyed that friend's reputation. He has a friend in the movie that comes in later who specifically is like, I haven't talked to him in forever because he has ruined that relationship. We don't know how, but obviously he's just going around doing whatever the hell he wants at the expense of other people, doing things with people that ruins their reputation, because that's the times. Women weren't alone with men. They didn't just date men and never marry them. It was like, everything that he did, he knew what he was doing, but he's also leaving this trail of, whispers and rumors, because everybody knows everything. Yeah. Everyone's
he's either he's being a bad influence on other men or women. And all through that time, I think it's like 18 years passed during all of this. He looks exactly the same. Everybody else around him is graying and aging. And the portrait is, I fucking love the portrait. So I want to say read real quick about the actual portraits that they used for this. So the two paintings of the character Dorian Gray that were used in the film. The painting titled Picture of Dorian Gray, used at the end of the film, which is the one that's all like of him all gnarly and messed up from all his sins and all that, was commissioned during the making of the film in 1943 to 44 by Yvon Le Laurent Albright, an American artist who was well known as a painter of the macabre. And oh my God, yeah, I can see why, because that thing was macabre. Created specifically for use in the film, it is now part of the art collection of the Art Institute of Chicago. I want to go see it. Let's go to Chicago. Albright had to paint the picture while the movie was being made to show Dorian Gray's physical transformation as his evil actions changed him into a horrid image in the painting, while his actual physical appearance remained that of a young man. And at the film's climax, I won't go through this because this tells the ending. But yeah, so the portrait of Dorian Gray seen in the beginning of the film, which is of the actor Hurd Hatfield, like the normal him, is titled Portrait of Hurd Hatfield as Dorian Gray. It was originally sold at the MGM auction in 1970 when the contents of the studio were sold at a series of auctions lasting several months. It was sold in a Butterfield and Butterfield Entertainment memorabilia auction in 1997 for $17,250. And then again in 2015, sold at Christie's, New York for $149,000, believed to be in a private collection now.
Ooh.
So, lucky ducks.
And you know what? I love that original portrait there that they had of Dorian Gray. I thought it was good. I was like, that's painted? Damn. Okay, over the years, the portrait of the young, handsome Dorian Gray has warped into a hideous demon-like creature reflecting Dorian's sins. Like Dalia mentioned, he has gotten like completely just fired anybody who goes in the room. So all these rumors have spread. Basil comes to him because he wants to discuss his reputation. He needs to talk to him because he's like, this is enough. That's 18 years later. He looks like the same age. Dalia was talking about these paintings, and I wanted to note that when I read it, I never imagined the portrait, what it would actually look like after 18 years. I thought he was just going to be an elderly looking man in the photo, but instead his features have been all warped into these grotesque, the most grotesque, like demonic, like
it's so good. It's so good.
It is. I was shocked just because maybe if you had more context and you just saw it, you'd be like, ooh. But to me, I was like, what the fuck? What is going on? It is like monstrous.
I would love a what do they call the copies of portraits?
Yes.
I want one. I want one in my room. I'm looking around where I would put it.
Dude, I know, right? That would be so cool. But it was like this. It was really monstrous. So Basil comes in. He's like, dude, you got to like chill. You got to like stop doing what you're doing. You're doing bad stuff and you're like ruining women. And, you know, your friends are like all taken off. And why do you look 20 years old still? And he's like, fine, if you want to see it, you're going to come with me. And that's how he said it in the movie. He had like,
because he wanted to see he wanted to see his portrait again. Because remember, like, Basil was the one that painted it.
He painted it. And so he's like, I want to see it. He's like, fine, if you want to see it, come with me. And he's like, okay, because he had thought about displaying it at one point. He was like, I want to display the portrait. And Dorian was like, but you said you didn't want to. Now there was an important note that he made in the beginning. Basil, in the beginning of the movie, he said, while I was painting him, I had this feeling overcome me, which was like unsettling. I had a very bad feeling about this while painting it, that this wasn't a good thing. And I still finished it. He signed it. His little niece signed it. And that was it. He was never going to display this portrait because he didn't want anybody to see it. But he's like, I want to see it now because I want to show the beauty that is this portrait. It's been years. And Dorian Gray leads him up to his old school room where he has locked it away and pulls off the blanket. And there you see the hideous thing. It's come alive. And so he knows it's his painting because his signature is on it.
Yeah.
His signature is on it.
He recognizes it. Yeah.
How could this be? Dorian, he speaks with Howard about what he's done and how it has changed the portrait, as if some moral leprosy was eating him away. But we see it literally as he's saying it. And Howard encourages Dorian to reform his life. You must repent. He didn't say that. He's actually not like that at all. He's really kind. However, Dorian panics, and what does he do? What does he do? He's playing with the knife the whole time. Yeah, and that's why I'm like, he planned to do it from the moment that man went up there.
Because he was playing with that fucking knife from before he even got there.
Yeah. I don't think he panicked at all. I think he intended to show it to him because he was getting rid of people left and right.
He just wanted to justify it. He just wanted to be able to justify it somehow. Yeah. And he did it. And I felt, oh my God. So, okay. So here, this is just me again with my little supposition, Dalia brain thinking away. So in the beginning, like you said, he wasn't planning on showing it to anybody. Right. So to me, that was because, like we talked about, he thought he was kind of trying to keep Dorian to himself. This very handsome young man, him and Dorian would meet up away from Lord Henry, all of that stuff. So it was just him. And then when Lord Henry comes into the picture, he didn't have Dorian Gray all to himself anymore. So I think that now that he got older and Dorian Gray was still looking young, he didn't have that relationship with Dorian that he used to have. So if he can't have that relationship with him anymore, he wanted something to do with that portrait, that picture that he painted of that could be reminiscent of a better time, of a relationship that he did have that no longer exists.
I love that. I don't think you're reading into that. Yeah, I think that is exactly right. He used to have this young friend who came to visit him and whose niece loved him and all of that. So it's I completely agree. And you know what, the summary, because I'm going by the summary that's written in Wikipedia, kind of skipped over here, but Gladys, his niece, this is Basil's niece, the one who signed her name to on the portrait. She has grown up in the past 18 years and now she's a young, beautiful lady. And he finds her charming and beautiful. And obviously he's decided that he's going to make her his. I don't know if he's trying to reclaim his youth, but also I do think that come on, guy. He is trying to move on though, because in allowing Basil to come up, I think he intends to move away. Everybody's staring at him when he walks in the room. Why does he still look so young? They do these quick scenes where he walks in the room and everybody's just fucking staring and whispering. And he leaves the room and everybody's fucking staring and whispering. He can't stay there very much longer, but he does have something. He has this Gladys. He has this woman who is young and beautiful like he is. And this is, I think, his second chance to move on. And I think that's what he was planning on, moving away or whatever it is, but he was definitely trying to move on with his life. He leaves this man here. This is how awful he is. This is somebody he's known like however long, more than 20 years.
Yeah.
He discards his body in that schoolroom and just locks it up and just leaves him there. That's what he thinks. And he
like
thinks
trash. And he's over here courting his niece, Basil's niece. And
at the
then,
same time.
Yeah.
And he leaves and he's like, well, nobody saw him coming, because the thing is that Basil was visiting him because he was going to be leaving town. He was headed to the train. He had waited there for his friend until the last possible moment that he knew he had to go catch his train. And so everyone saw him leave. So he knew this and he thought to himself, well, then I can just dispose of him.
But tell everybody where he was going.
Yeah. He was going to Paris.
For what?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I don't remember. What was he
to be a painter in fucking Paris.
Oh, well, he's a painter.
That's why it's depressing. No, but he was going to be a painter in Paris. Paris was the place to be an artist.
Himself. Yeah. And he obviously was a great artist. Look at this portrait. I'm like, he was an artist.
But it's so sad. He was all excited. He'd already sent his shit ahead of him, and he was going to go finally live his life there, and which you can kind of, read into a little bit too. But anyway, so yeah, it was just really sad. He fucking kills him and like, just like you said, just leaves him there like he's nothing, and has his men. No, it wasn't even his men. He blackmailed the dude.
Yes, so that's when he decides what's he going to do with the body, because see, nobody saw him coming, so he can easily nobody saw him there. They saw him come because his man answered the door. His man let him out. So he pretends to come home and is like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, your friend was here. He waited. He left like 30 minutes ago. And so he has the perfect
I fucking wanted to punch him in the fucking face when he did that. I'm like, you motherfucker. Kind of
perfect alibi. I was like, damn, that's smooth. So, so he decides he's going to find somebody. He has to get rid of this body, but also he doesn't get his hands dirty. In the portrait, something did change when he killed his friend. The hand becomes bloody and there's a knife in it. But in real life, he doesn't get his hands dirty. So he blackmails a friend. I want to know what's in that letter. He has a letter.
I know.
I'm all cocky, sitting there like, oh, you don't want to help me? I wish everybody could see me do this. Okay. So, and he seals it up with a little wax. And he's like, if you don't do what I say, then I'm going to mail this letter. And you know what's in it. and you don't want people to know what's in it. And the man is standing there. This was his friend. And he's told him, I know you're a chemist. You can get rid of this body in any way you want. Oh, yeah, I did kill him. But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
You get rid of it or I'm going to send this letter. And he's like, what a fucking scumbag. So the man does do what he asks.
Yep.
He does do what he asks because he has no choice. And then he ends up dying as well at his own hand because he is led to suicide. So Dorian begins to realize the harm he inflicts on himself and others. But he still decides he's going to marry Gladys.
Yeah.
They're still together. He asks her to marry him after he kills the friend.
Yeah.
At dinner.
It's so gross. It's so fucking gross.
Nobody's heard from my uncle. He hasn't arrived yet. Oh, don't worry. He'll be there soon. He's probably living it up right now. He'll let us know when he gets there. They end up going to I think the authorities.
Yeah, and they fucking go to Paris too. They go to Paris. They talk about it because they don't show it, but they talk about they go to Paris. They fucking go looking for him, for Basil. They come back, and this motherfucker over here is pretending that he has no idea where Basil is. He's like, "Oh, we've looked everywhere for him. We can't find him. We put the word out, blah blah blah." And then at the same time, he's over here. So anyways, our honeymoon or our wedding or whatever, he's fucking making wedding plans with Gladys. Gladys, the niece of Basil, who he fucking killed. And oh my God, I'm just so mad at this guy. I'm just so mad at him.
It's also, somebody even suggests perhaps he's gone to San Francisco because that's the place where men can go and have fun.
Yeah.
But that's enough for them. But also at the time, I could see Gladys's side thinking, okay, yeah, he is having a good time. He told us he was going to leave. All his stuff is gone.
Oh, no.
He
totally. I see her side. Yeah.
Because they didn't have phones and stuff. Oh, my gosh. This stresses me out so bad. Sometimes when I watch these movies where I'm like, they don't know where anybody is for weeks at a time. I'm like, how do you not know?
Not just weeks, years, if they ever heard from them again.
Months. If your family, it's just like, I just don't even, it's just insane to not be able to communicate in a timely manner. And these people were just living like that every day. So obviously he's a dirt. Have we established that Dorian's an asshole now?
I don't think so. Not yet. So
okay. So you need some more evidence.
He's an asshole.
He does find out. Okay. So so he's in this whirlwind romance and they're going to get married. She's overjoyed when he proposes to her at dinner, and those close to Dorian find him suspicious, and really, really changed. Dorian begins to realize the harm he inflicts on everyone, and he is still visiting the place where he met Sybil long ago. And here's the reintroduction of Sybil's brother, who,
by the way, looks exactly the same.
Yes.
Did he wish upon a cat of onyx?
This was mentioned in the production value of this part. I believe that some of the people, they didn't bother to change that they obviously had aged. And he's one of the characters that they didn't bother to show that it's been 20 years. But he's visiting the places where Dorian used to visit. And he mentions it to a lady at one of the taverns. I love the tavern. And that he's looking for a man that he only knew by the name of it was a knight's name, and it's just completely escaped my mind right now. Sir Tristan. He never knew Dorian Gray's real name. The sister had referred to him as Sir Tristan because that was her Prince Charming, which is actually, she called him Prince Charming in the book and calls him Sir Tristan in the movie. But anyway, he's looking for this man and what he looks like, and he can't find him. In comes Dorian Gray, and he's playing the piano, but he's like, that looks like him, but there's no way. It's been 20 years. And he confronts him, but he was like, who do you think I am? The cat is going crazy right now.
That's hilarious.
James the brother has sworn revenge for his sister's death. Dorian, abusing his ever youthful appearance, deceives James by claiming his appearance is too youthful to be the man that he thinks he is. But James soon learns the truth, following him to his country estate to achieve his revenge. Somebody at the bar asks him, how old do you think that guy is? And he's like, he can't be more than 22. I like how he was very exact, because that's
very exact.
Dorian Gray is at the beginning of the movie. And he's like, no, he's 40. Dun, dun, dun. And then he gives up the address like that. I'm like, dude, back then they had investigators that were just as good as internet sleuths.
That he didn't like him though. The guy that told on him, he's like, he didn't fucking like him. He was like, oh yeah, go take. He thought he was gonna kick his ass, just kick his ass. He was like, yeah, here's his address. Here
he has a gun and he wants to murder him. So Dorian is throwing like a hunting party, which I thought was dangerous as fuck in itself. Everybody just shooting wildly.
This was the fucking bachelor party, by the way.
There's people just shooting like 2 feet from each other.
Yeah.
Just dangerous as fuck. But and the first thing I said when I saw this was like, I wonder how many people got killed at things like this.
Oh, plenty.
And then what happens? One of the dudes he's standing next to shoots and accidentally kills somebody. He shoots and then you hear a scream and he's like, oh, somebody got in the way.
And then there goes our hunting. I hope we don't have to stop hunting today.
Yeah. So they drag out, they're like, oh, we think he's a sailor or something. And they drag his body out. They're like, did you find out who Dorian's like, did you find out the man who died? Oh, how much money do you think I have to give their family some? If he has children,
he's such a piece of shit.
They're so fucking dismissive. A human being has died. And this hasn't changed, and I won't even get into it, Dalia, but I was so pissed at this part. I was so pissed about how they uncaring and cold these people were.
We're not talking about anyone specific. This is completely fictional.
Just fictional. That doesn't happen in real life. They find out kind of who is. They just have a description, but when Dorian sees the man, he realizes, oh, that's James Sybil's brother. He's done that. That. He's responsible for that. But at the same time, all these other people, they accidentally shot somebody and killed somebody, and they didn't give any fucks. Yeah. That is this is who he surrounds himself with.
Yep.
More uncaring, cold people.
Pieces of shit.
The unfortunate James, hiding in the bushes, is shot and killed. And Dorian despairs at his impact on others when he realizes who he is, knowing his role in yet another death, and realizes he can spare Gladys from misfortune by leaving her. So is he writing her another letter?
Yeah.
He's going to text her as well. I remember seeing a video a couple of years of some woman talking about how she got broken up by text. And I'm like, we're doing that now? We're doing that by text? But I guess this is like the original breaking up by text.
Yeah, this is the original.
The Dear John. Attributing the change to determination and not to harm Gladys, he resolves to change his life. And he wants to destroy the portrait. But he just writes her a letter. Kind of like the end. What the fuck? You need to face, and this is the thing is, he decides he's going to go face the portrait, but he doesn't even have the courage to tell this woman to her face what he's done and who he is. She receives the letter and they get distressed and Lord fucks around a lot, comes with her and they show up at the house, but he doesn't know they're there. He heads up to go look at his portrait and he sees how horrible and disfigured it is, and he's like, that is me. And he is going to destroy the portrait. I don't remember if he was going to burn it too or not, but what he has is he has the knife that he killed his best friend with. He kept it. He kept the knife. And what he ends up doing is he's just talking to himself in his head, and he stabs the portrait in the heart, hoping to end this spell, but cries out as if too he's been stabbed. His friends, realizing what has happened, they bust into the schoolroom to discover that Dorian is dead next to the portrait. His body withered, wrinkled, and loathsome of visage, now reflecting his sins in physical form. The portrait, by contrast, is Dorian Gray, the young, innocent man again. So
it was very okay. So when it happened, first of all, when we see the photo, or not the photo, why do I keep calling it a fucking photo? The picture, the portrait of him. Back to normal. First of all, I think he was a piece of shit, and him dying like that, it doesn't bother me. But when I see him up in the portrait, I do this weird thing where I empathize and do this weird thing where I'm like, oh, what a wasted life. So I'm looking at him like he was when that picture was painted, and I'm like, that is so sad. Look at that guy standing up, and so that made me sad to see him, this wasted life up there. And then and then when you see him on the ground, he looked even more fucked up in real life than in the picture, I think. When we were seeing his painting, it was really fucked up. But then when we see him on the ground dead, oh my fucking God, he was hideous. But he also said, I don't know if you remember this, as he's dying, he starts praying and yells out, "Heaven forgive me," as he dies. In some versions of the movie that came out, some of them kept that line in and some didn't. So some people heard it with "Heaven forgive me" and some heard it without. We heard it. Well, I heard it with. I don't know if you did too, but so yeah, I just found that interesting. But yeah, it made me sad to see his portrait up there, like before everything happened. When when Gladys sees him on the ground, and she doesn't have to know that he killed. I mean, we don't have to have said out loud that he killed the uncle, but it all hits her at once. And that poor girl, just like, she loved him like a schoolgirl crush when she was like, what was she, maybe 5 years old when she first met him. Until she grew older, she always had the crush until it grew to love. And then this man was this whole time this hideous, disgusting person doing these horrible things that killed her uncle. Yeah.
So he ends up slinking away into death, never having to have faced anything that he actually did. That's pretty much what I got. Like, he just and you're right, she sees everything. That's the only conclusion that I think that you could put things together. Everybody in his wake has been left a disaster thanks to relationships with him. And obviously her uncle wasn't around anymore. And I know she had to have known that was him. So yeah, I like the little dummy thing that they used. I mean, dummy as in like stuffed prop thing.
Yeah, it was great.
They used on the ground to represent him. But the portrait is back to its beautiful self. I think he released his younger self back away. That was his youthful spirit that he had killed himself was now free. This is free. Like a little baby bird.
Like the little caged bird, the little yellow bird.
Yes, there you go.
Bring it all around.
So much.
But yeah, so that ending, like I said, that's why it sat with me, because it was just like all like it was very emotional for me seeing all that. Like, again, I always think of it like a wasted life. It's just like, yeah, he was evil, but I always go back to when they weren't evil yet. Wasted life, wasted all of this. And that poor young lady, her life is wasted too, because she's going to probably be associated with this piece of shit for the rest of her life. Just everybody around them was fucked. And I do want to mention real quick, because I really enjoyed the music in the movie. Of course, we heard the song that we mentioned earlier, "Goodbye, Little Yellow Bird," which I really enjoyed, and Angela Lansbury killed it. We also heard Dorian Gray's character. I forgot to look up if the actor himself was playing the music, but anyways, he was playing a lot a piece by Chopin, which is Prelude in E. And I think, it's number 4, something like that. I'm not good with that kind of shit. But one of my most favorite songs is also played in this movie. When Dorian Gray comes in at the end of the movie into the place where he had met Angela Lansbury's character, there's a gentleman playing. Oh, I can't remember who's who playing, but someone is playing Prelude as well. And then he ends up, he's been asked to stop playing Prelude and play something else. And he plays Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven, which is one of my favorite songs. Every time I hear that, speaking of haunting, that's another reason. I don't know if this this song's supposed to be haunting, but anytime I hear it, it's always in a part of a movie or something that's really just filled with a lot of dread and melancholy and all that. So I always equate it to that. So of course, the movie ending with this song nearby, of course, was going to leave me feeling all shitty and everything. But yeah, so it also has Moonlight Sonata, like I said, is one of my favorite songs. So anyways, closing out. Alma, any last words about this movie?
Nothing, just what I stated in the beginning of the movie. I love the movie. I like the way you mentioned the music. It all works good if something's setting the mood and the setting and the tone of the movie.
Like the kitty cat playing in the background right now.
Playing with the cardboard. Everything. Cats be catting, just like the Egyptian cat statue.
You should make a wish in front of your cats and see if it comes true.
I wish you would be quiet. I'm trying to record. That's what I wasted my wish on. Could you imagine if that's what you wasted your wish on? But I'm also going to stick to Lord Watton's life motto of leading the life of the leisure. Who doesn't want to do that?
I have to mention. Yeah, he was an asshole. And another quote from asshole Lord Henry that I have to mention. Another quote, which I thought was so funny because he was talking about being cheating on your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, and he says, "Faithfulness is laziness." And he said that several times in different ways. And I was just like, and he would say this in front of Basil, who is I don't know happily, but he was married. And every time he would say it, Basil would look at him like really frustrated, like practically roll his eye. I kept thinking, like, well, Basil, why are you friends with him?
Exactly. He's still friends with him, but at the same time, did Basil go and have tests of virtue on people and fucking fuck around on this? No, he did it. That's why I think from the beginning, Dorian was already on a path that Basil had recognized and knew what would end up happening. So that's what it is. Dorian Gray became exactly what he pictured him to be. Yep. When he drew when he painted that painting as he made it, I don't think there was anything actually mystical of anything about it. I think he just felt that dread that he realized while sitting there with his friend in the room, that his friend was actually easily corruptible and headed down a dark path. Dun, dun, dun. That's where we're going to insert some cool like music and shit. So, great movie.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay, so I just also want to introduce a cool little thing that we have started. We now have a letterbox. Did you hear us at that letterbox? And it's going to. And it's strictly just the movies that we have watched on our podcast, and then we'll have a few notes on what we thought of it. They're not going to be professional reviews. Like some people are like, "Have you gone on there?" Some people like put like really good reviews.
Yeah, I don't read those. I'm going to be really, really honest with you all. I want to read critiques and reviews by fans of horror. I don't need to read the reviews from people who watch all movies, for example, even though sometimes they can be good. I want to hear from you all, the diehard horror fans. I want to hear from the people who love horror. I want to read the review that starts off with, as a diehard horror fan, as a Halloween fan, as a, you know what I mean? That's what pulls me in. And although those are great because, I know that at the end of the day, people have to be funded and make these great movies and everything. I think we're just as professional as any other horror movie fan. We are the professional movie fan.
I like that. The professional movie fan. I love that. So letterbox.com/nightmare movie /nightmare movie. And Alma, where else can everybody find us?
You can find us on our website, nightmaremoviepodcast.com. Now I'm going to go Nightmare Movie Podcast. Instagram at Nightmare Movie Podcast. Our Twitter is at Nightmare on 5th. That's Nightmare on 5th. We're also on Facebook. We put everything on there that's on our pages. And you can email us at nightmaremoviepodcast@gmail.com.
And we also have a Patreon, as Alma says, if you would like to support and fund this. What'd you call it last week? This? I think you just said this because we were being really stupid. If you would like to support us in a different way, you could head over to patreon.com/nightmare. What?
That's not it, cochina. Sorry.
Oh my God, you're always ruining shit.
Say that Patreon again.
Oh, I can't even do it. I don't even know where I'm at. Okay. Patreon.com/nightmare movie podcast. Or if you just want to do a one-time donation and buy us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/nightmarepod. I don't know why I said it like that. Nightmare Pod. Okay, I'll stop.
Because we're it's horror. That's how you say it, horror style.
Nightmare movie podcast.
Shut the fuck up already. Wrap it up. Thank you for listening to Nightmare on Fifth Street, a horror movie podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Also, leave a review or share what movie you would like us to discuss. As always, thank you for listening.